Emma's apartment was a sanctuary. It was her escape from the bustling city, a place where she could unwind and be herself. Small, cosy, filled with books and the comforting scent of old paper. Each book held a story, a world she could dive into whenever reality felt too overwhelming. A haven from the city's clamour. The noise and chaos of the outside world seemed to melt away as soon as she stepped through the door. Dominating one wall was an ornately carved antique mirror. It was a striking piece, commanding attention and adding a touch of old-world charm to the room. A family heirloom, its silvered surface was dulled with age, its edges etched with time. The mirror had been passed down through generations, each leaving their mark on its surface. It was beautiful, in a haunting, melancholic way. The mirror seemed to hold secrets, whispers of the past that echoed through its glass. Emma found it both alluring and unsettling. There was something about the mirror that drew her in, yet made her uneasy at the same time. Emma ran a hand over the cool glass. The surface was smooth, yet it felt as if it held 1,000 stories within its depths. She saw her reflection, a young woman with tired eyes and windblown hair, framed by the mirror's antique grandeur. The mirror seemed to reflect not just her image, but her soul. A wave of loneliness washed over her. The mirror, with its silent presence, seemed to amplify her feelings, making her acutely aware of her solitude. The city outside hummed with life, but here, in her quiet apartment, she felt strangely alone. The contrast between the bustling world outside and the stillness within her sanctuary was stark, and it made her loneliness even more profound. Days turned into weeks. Emma grew accustomed to the mirror's presence. One evening, as she brushed her hair, she caught a glimpse of movement in the reflection. A subtle shift, a flicker in the glass. She paused, holding her breath. Her reflection mimicked her, but there was something different, something off. Dismissing it as fatigue, Emma continued her routine. Yet, a seed of unease had been planted. Later that night, lying awake, she couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched. The silence of the apartment felt heavier, the air thick with unspoken tension. The strange occurrences continued, a fleeting glimpse of movement when no one was near. A whisper, soft and indistinct, seeming to emanate from the mirror itself. Emma tried to rationalize them, but fear had a way of twisting logic, of amplifying the shadows. She started avoiding the mirror, her gaze sliding away from its antique surface. Sleep offered little respite. Nightmares plagued her, vivid and disturbing, always featuring the mirror. It loomed large in her subconscious, a dark, enigmatic presence. Emma felt her grip on reality slipping, replaced by a creeping sense of dread. One evening, as Emma sat reading, her back to the mirror, she felt a chill crawl down her spine. The air grew heavy, the room noticeably colder. Slowly she turned, her heart pounding against her ribs. The mirror, once reflecting the familiar surroundings, was now awash in an unnatural darkness. And then she saw it. Her reflection, but it wasn't her. Not anymore. The eyes that stared back were cold and predatory, the lips curled into a cruel smile. It moved with a life of its own, its gaze holding hers captive, drawing her in. Panic clawed at Emma's throat. She wanted to scream, to run, but her body refused to obey. She was rooted to the spot, paralyzed by fear. The reflection stretched out a hand, its touch beckoning, inviting. The whisper returned, this time clearer, more insistent. "Join me!" it hissed, the voice a chilling echo of her own. Emma's mind screamed in protest, but the mirror held an unnatural allure. It promised an escape from her loneliness, from the mundane reality of her life. A dangerous curiosity began to stir within her, battling with her terror. The reflection moved closer, its hand now hovering inches from the glass. Emma's breath hitched as she watched, her heart pounding in her chest. The air around her grew colder, and she could see her breath misting in front of her. She knew she should run, but her feet felt like they were glued to the floor. Emma felt an invisible force pulling her towards the mirror, dragging her towards its cold embrace. She tried to resist, planting her feet firmly on the ground, but the force was too strong. It was as if the mirror had a will of its own, determined to consume her. She tried to fight it, to break free from its hold, but it was no use. The more she struggled, the stronger the force became. Her hands clawed at the air, searching for something to hold on to, but there was nothing. She was completely at the mercy of the mirror. She was caught, ensnared in a web of fear and fascination. The mirror's surface seemed to ripple, and she could see shadows moving within it. They whispered to her, their voices a haunting melody that sent chills down her spine. She couldn't look away, even though every instinct screamed at her to run. The room around her dissolved into a blur, the only reality the chilling presence in the mirror. Everything else faded away, leaving her alone with the reflection that wasn't quite her own. It felt like she was being pulled into another world, one where the rules of reality no longer applied. She could feel its coldness seeping into her, numbing her, stealing her will. Her limbs grew heavy and her thoughts became sluggish. It was as if the mirror was draining her life force, leaving her an empty shell. She wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Emma closed her eyes, accepting the inevitable, surrendering to the darkness that beckoned. She felt a strange sense of peace wash over her, as if she was finally where she was meant to be. The last thing she heard was the soft whisper of the mirror, welcoming her home. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the pull released her. Emma stumbled back, gasping for air, her heart pounding a frantic tattoo against her ribs. The room swam back into focus, the mirror once again reflecting her own terrified image. The reflection was gone, vanished without a trace. Relief washed over her, followed by a wave of bone-deep exhaustion. She had escaped, but the encounter had left its mark. The mirror, once a source of unsettling beauty, was now a symbol of terror, a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface. Days turned into a blur of fear and paranoia. Emma's once vibrant life had become a series of anxious moments, each one more unsettling than the last. The shadows in her apartment seemed to move with a life of their own, and the ticking of the clock grew louder, echoing her racing heartbeat. Emma avoided the mirror, yet its presence loomed large in her small apartment. It was as if the mirror held secrets she wasn't ready to confront. Every time she passed by, she felt an inexplicable chill, a sense of foreboding that made her skin crawl. The faint reflections seemed to whisper to her, their voices just out of reach. She couldn't escape the feeling that she was being watched, hunted. The sensation was relentless, gnawing at her sanity. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the curtains sent her heart into a frenzy. She would often find herself looking over her shoulder, her eyes darting around in fear, searching for an unseen predator. Her reflection seemed different, a stranger staring back at her from every reflective surface. The face in the mirror was hers, yet it wasn't. It was distorted, twisted by an unknown force. The eyes that met hers were cold, devoid of the warmth she once knew. It was as if the mirror had become a portal to another world, one where she was not welcome. Then one morning Emma vanished. The sun rose, casting a pale light into her apartment, but she was nowhere to be found. Her bed was left in disarray, the sheets rumpled as if she had left in a hurry. The door was ajar, hinting at a sudden departure, but there were no signs of a struggle. Her apartment was found empty, her belongings untouched. It was as if she had simply ceased to exist. The police were baffled, finding no clues, no evidence of foul play. Her personal items remained in their places, undisturbed, as if waiting for her return. The air was thick with an eerie silence, a haunting reminder of her sudden disappearance. The only sign of her presence, a single long strand of hair caught on the ornate frame of the antique mirror. It was a delicate thread, a fragile link to the woman who had once lived there. The mirror, with its intricate designs, seemed to hold onto that strand as if it were a precious relic, a testament to Emma's existence. The mirror itself was cold to the touch. its surface reflecting nothing but an empty room. It was as if the mirror had absorbed all the warmth, all the life that had once filled the space. The coldness seeped into the room, creating an atmosphere of desolation. The reflection showed only emptiness, a void where Emma once stood, leaving behind a chilling mystery that would haunt those who knew her. The mirror remained, a silent sentinel in the now empty apartment. Its secrets remained locked within its silvered depths, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lay hidden beneath the surface of everyday life. And somewhere, lost in the reflection's embrace, Emma was trapped, her fate forever bound to the antique mirror and its chilling secret. The end.